Guys, welcome to my channel. So today we're just going to be talking about the new Sephora Pro palette, and this one right here is the Cool palette. I also have a video up of the Warm palette if you want to see that one as well. Please be sure to check it out. And then of course, if you're watching this, you might as well go ahead and subscribe to my channel, just saying. And if you want to see basically my first impressions and everything of the Cool palette, please be sure to stay tuned. So this right here is the packaging for the Sephora Cool palette. So very similar to the Sephora Warm palette packaging, except the lettering on this one is silver, whereas that one is gold, and it does have that silver trim all the way around. On the back, it does have the description where it talks about what Sephora Pro is, and then it has the ingredients for the shadows here, and then of course a picture of the shadows along with the names. So within the box, it also comes with, aside from the palette, a little kind of pamphlet or booklet that looks like this. It just has basically instructions on how to create different looks, and then it also has pictures of what shadows to use. So the pamphlet has about 4 looks on it, and then the first look is just a natural look, then a soft smoky, then a cool smoky eye look, and then a dimensional smoky eye. So it also, just like I said, has the instructions. It tells you what brushes to use and everything. So that is included in the palette, since it was, I believe, developed by the Sephora Pro team. So if you're not familiar with the Sephora Pro team, it's just a team of Sephora's, I would say, top makeup artists within the entire company, and there are only, I believe, 15 artists, and this is worldwide. So it is a very intensive audition process, and these are definitely the leading makeup artists within the world, I would have to say, as far as like Sephora. So they did help to develop these Sephora Pro palettes. So this right here is the packaging for the actual Cool Tone palette. So like I said, it just has like this nice silver lettering here. It's just a nice black packaging, very similar to the Warm palette, and it's nice and sleek. I also didn't mention in the Warm palette video, but this palette is magnetic, if I can open it. And then it also has this really nice mirror. So like I said, it's a magnetic. And then when you open it, you get that big mirror, like I said. And then there's also a film that just has the names of each of the shadows, so that way you know what shadow you're using. So I'm just going to hold it up so you can kind of see what that looks like there. And then here is what the palette looks like. So clearly it's just full of 28 cool tone shadows. I believe the finishes on the shadows are matte, satin, shimmer, and chrome. So it has a very nice variation of finishes for each of the shadows, and then a nice variation of color as well. So personally, I'm not completely blown away with the Cool Tone palette, only because I am a warm toned girl. I do, however, love that there's a black shadow in both of the palettes, which I think is amazing. And then also within this palette, I really just enjoy the pink shades and then the brown shades. Yeah, and then the brown shades in the shadow. Other than that, I'm a big warm shadow girl. So this palette does retail for about $68, and it is limited edition. So all of the new Sephora Pro palettes, the warm, the cool, and the editorial palettes are limited edition. So if you're debating on purchasing or getting the palettes, I would highly recommend it. The shadows in this palette are very pigmented, buttery, soft, and creamy. The only con I have about this palette is there is going to be a little bit of fallout with some of the matte shadows. But if you don't mind a little bit of fallout, which I feel can be expected when the shadows are so soft and blendable, then this palette is definitely for you. So I did use the Warm Tone palette today for my eye look, which is this one right here. I just did kind of a warm smoky, like brown eye with a little bit of gold on the inner corner and a little bit of black on the outer rim and outer corner of my eyes. So I'm just saying, this is my eye look for today, and I thought the shadows were very buttery, creamy, soft, smooth, like literally everything you would want in a shadow. And I know that the palette does retail for $68, which is definitely pretty pricey for a Sephora collection, but I believe they kind of got the idea from like the Natasha Denona palette, you know. But that one retails for $238, and when you kind of compare $238 to $68, you really can't beat it in the price point. And besides, you could probably get like, not even probably, you can get 2 of the palettes for about half the price of one Natasha Denona palette. Not saying the pigmentation on that one isn't amazing, it is, but we can be a little bit more cost effective with these palettes here. So this palette is fresh outside of the box, so I'm just going to swatch a few of the shades for you. So the first shade that I'll probably swatch will be this nice deep pinky tone, purpley pink right here, and I'm just going to swatch it on my arm. I'm going to swatch about 5 random shades for you guys just so you can kind of see the pigmentation of the palette. So I'm just rubbing my finger in that one right there, and as you can see, super pigmented. And then I'm just going to swatch it on my arm. So here is that nice like deep pinky shade, and like I said, it's like really smooth, creamy, and very blendable. The next shade that I'm going to do is going to be this weird like pinky gold shade right here. So I'm just going to take my finger, rub it in there, and then I'm going to swatch that one right here. And as you can see, that shade in this particular palette wasn't that pigmented. I don't know if this was like a glittery shade. This one, it just honestly on my arm just looks like some glitter. So yeah, that is a little bit disappointing. I didn't have the experience when I swatched any of the shades in the warm tone palette, but I feel like it's just this weird like iridescent-y glittery shade there. So what I'm going to do now is kind of do one that looks very similar to that one. So it's kind of like that gray, glittery, iridescent-y, I don't know what to call it. And here's what it looks like swatched on my finger and then swatched on my arm. It looks poopy. It doesn't swatch very well at all. It looks like it's kind of chunky and glittery. So I would definitely stay away from these 2 shades in the palette. They're not very pigmented. I feel like every shade in the warm palette, by the way, was super pigmented. But these 2 are definitely disappointing. So the next shade that I'm going to swatch is going to be this kind of like deep gray shade right here. And this one is definitely off the bat more creamy than the previous 2 I just swatched. So I'm expecting definitely more pigment out of this one. And as you can see, that one has the pigment that I was talking about earlier. The other 2, I don't know what happened with that or what type of like formula that was, but those sucked ass. So the last and final shade that I will swatch in the palette will be this nice kind of like pinky mauve shade right here. And I'm just going to swatch that one with my pinky, and that one was super creamy, which was expected. And there is the swatch right there. It did show up pretty pigmented. You can't tell only because it's like similar to my skin tone. So I will swatch just one more just to kind of prove it to you guys that it is very pigmented and somewhat worth the money. So the last shade that I will swatch will be actually this nice light bluish gray toned. So this one is very creamy and buttery, as you can kind of see. And then I'm just going to swatch it next to that like mauve pink shade. And as you can see, that one was pigmented as well. So basically, I would say that all of the matte shades within the palette are very creamy pigmented. The shimmer shades are pretty good as well. but the ones that are kind of like glittery are horrible, like horrible. So all in all, I would say that this palette is worth the $68 if you don't mind those couple of shades that are just horrible. But if you want like a cool toned palette that has a good variety of mattes, then I would say this one is definitely worth the $68. And then also too, you can't really beat it when you compare it to $238 Natasha Denona palette. Can't really beat it, and you do get definitely what you pay for. But I do think it is pretty good quality. It has a nice big mirror. The shades are pretty good except for those 2 or 3. And yeah. Also, the palette is limited edition, so it is available currently right now on Sephora.com. So if you're thinking about getting it and you don't mind, like I said, having a couple shades that suck, then I would definitely pick up the palette. Yeah, because the palette, like I said, is limited edition. So all in all, I would say that the palette is worth the $68 if you don't mind a couple of the shades being kind of sucky. But if you're looking for a nice cool tone palette that has a good variety of color, has nice mattes, and is very pigmented, then I would say this one is a good purchase or a good buy. Like I said, the palette is limited edition, so it won't be around for a extended period of time. So if you're debating on getting it, I would probably just go ahead and spend that $68 and get it. It's nice packaging, sleek, has a mirror, travel friendly, all that good stuff. The only 2 cons actually about this palette is there's a little bit of fallout with some of the matte shades because they are so creamy and pigmented, and then a couple of those glittery chunky shades are horribly just horrible. But if you don't mind that, then this palette is definitely for you. So I will also link my other video that I did on the warm palette below, and then I'll also link down below a couple of sites or pages that you can go to if you want to see full swatches from the entire palette. So if you guys enjoyed this quick review unboxing swatch video, then obviously you should subscribe, especially if you're still here watching. Just saying. And give this video a thumbs up while you're at that too, because you know you might as well. So subscribe, like, all that good stuff. Thank you guys so much for watching. More videos will be coming, and enjoy the rest of your day.